Imagine standing in front of your people after being beaten in public. Not struck once in anger, not punished in private. Beaten deliberately, where everyone can see. Your body is barely steady. Your breath is shallow. You tell yourself the punishment is over because it has already crossed what you thought was unbearable. You are wrong. Roman soldiers are already moving past you. They are not there to restore order. They do not even look at you. Their hands reach for your daughters while you are still standing in the open. You were a queen. You were an ally. You obeyed Roman law. None of it matters now. There is no trial. No accusation read aloud. No explanation. This is happening in full view of your people. Because Rome wants it that way. The crowd has gone silent not from confusion, but from recognition. They know exactly what is about to happen. They have seen Rome teach lessons before. This is where Rome expected you to submit. This is where a mother was supposed to break. This is not fiction. Roman historians recorded it with as few words as possible, because even by Roman standards, what followed was difficult to justify. By the end of that day, Rome believed Britain had been broken. Instead, it lit a fire that nearly drove Rome from the island. But that rebellion comes later. Before Britain burned, Rome had already perfected how to deal with defeated queens. And that lesson begins elsewhere, far from Britain, far from rebellion, on the streets of Rome itself. You are being marched forward through the city. Roman guards flank you on both sides, close enough that their armor brushes your skin. They control your pace. You are not allowed to hurry. You are not allowed to stop. The chain around your wrists is cold, unmistakably gold. It catches the light with every step. This chain is not meant to restrain you. It is meant to be seen. The weight pulls at your shoulders. Before the pain reaches your legs, you understand its purpose immediately. You are not being escorted. You are being displayed. Rome does not hide its victories. It turns them into moving monuments. You hear the crowd before you see it. Thousands of voices layered together, laughter, shouting, anticipation. This is not the sound of an execution. This is excitement. That is when fear truly sets in. Rome kills its enemies quickly when it wants them gone. When Rome keeps you alive, it is because your body still has value. You lower your eyes, not in submission, but because whatever waits at the end of this road has already been decided. Waiting is part of the punishment. This happened to Queen Zenobia of Palmyra in 272 CE. For years, Zenobia had done what no Eastern ruler dared. She challenged Rome openly. She carved an empire stretching from Egypt through Syria and into Anatolia. She ruled in her own name, minted her own coins, commanded armies, and forced Rome to acknowledge her as more than a disposable client ruler. When Emperor Aurelian marched east, it was not to negotiate, it was to erase her. Zenobia understood Roman victory rituals. She had seen triumphs. She knew what happened to defeated kings. When her final army collapsed and her escape toward Persia failed, she did not expect mercy. She expected death. Instead, Roman soldiers surrounded her and lowered their swords. That alone was terrifying. Rome spared enemies only when it had something to gain. Zenobia was not valuable as a woman, not even as a queen. She was valuable as a symbol. Aurelian had crushed a defiant empire. Now he needed Rome to see it. Zenobia was placed in castibute, not comfort. Days passed, then weeks. She was moved between guarded rooms, watched constantly. No charges were read, no sentence announced. Under Roman law, the moment her army fell, Zenobia ceased to exist as a legal person. Defeat did not mean punishment. It meant transformation. Rome's law of nations was simple. Anyone captured in war became property. Free people became possessions the moment defeat was declared. Titles evaporated. Crowns meant nothing. A queen now had no more legal standing than the lowest soldier taken alive on the battlefield. This distinction mattered. Roman citizens could not be flogged without trial. To bind them publicly would cause outrage. Roman bodies were protected because Roman power depended on citizens believing the state protected them. Zenobia's body did not qualify. She was not Roman. She was not a citizen. She was not legally a queen anymore. Roman officials understood exactly what that allowed them to do, and they did not rush. Captured rulers were often held in deliberate limbo before triumphs. Not tortured, not comforted. Simply denied information. Guards changed. Sleep was disrupted. Food was rationed. Nothing dramatic, just enough to drain certainty. Would there be execution? Public display? A quiet disappearance? No one told her. While Zenobia waited, Rome prepared the city. Rumors spread deliberately. Whispers of her arrogance, her defiance, her ambition. Rome wanted the crowd primed long before she appeared. By the time Zenobia stepped into view, the audience would already know how to feel. When word finally came, it did not announce execution. It announced preparation. The Senate had granted Aurelian a triumph. Zenobia understood immediately what Rome intended to do with her. A Roman triumph was not a parade. It was a ritual of domination. It turned conquest into spectacle. At its center were always the defeated kings, generals, queens preserved just long enough to be seen. Zenobia would not die in a cell. She would be dressed, adorned, displayed. Her body would tell a story Rome wanted remembered. Chains were commissioned specifically for her. Not iron, gold, heavy, decorative. Impossible to ignore. They were not meant to prevent escape. Rome knew she would not run. They were meant to turn the wealth she once commanded into the instrument of her humiliation. As the day approached, the city buzzed. Would she be executed at the end? Diverted quietly before the final ascent? Swallowed beneath the Capitoline hill? No one knew. Zenobia walked toward her fate, knowing that survival was not mercy. It was evaluation, and she was not the first queen to learn that lesson. The morning of the triumph begins before sunrise. Rome wakes early when it wants to remember its power. The streets are already crowded when the procession forms. Incense burns. Flowers are scattered underfoot. This is celebration, but not joy. Triumphs are not about happiness. They are about reassurance. They remind the city that Rome still controls the world beyond its walls. Zenobia is brought out last, not because she is unimportant, because she is the climax. She has been dressed carefully, not in rags, not in mourning. She wears garments that echo her former status. Rich fabric, deliberate color, foreign design. Rome wants contrast. The crowd must recognize her as royal before it watches her reduced. The chains are fitted slowly. Gold links circle her wrists, her ankles, and her neck. They are heavier than iron because they are not meant to be practical. Each step will cost effort. Each stumble will be visible. Rome does not want her to fall. It wants her to endure. That endurance is the point. When she emerges, the sound changes. It is not silence. It is focus. The crowd leans in. Children are lifted onto shoulders. Senators watch from raised platforms. Veterans nod in approval. They have seen kings before, but queens who ruled are rarer. Zenobia walks. She does not speak. She does not plead. She does not look at the crowd for mercy. Roman writers would later emphasize this, not because it was kind, but because it unsettled them. Rome understands submission. It does not know what to do with dignity that refuses to collapse. Behind her come wagons carrying spoils from Palmyra statues. Gold, weapons, captured banners. Each item reinforces the message. This woman once controlled all of this, and now she does not even control herself. This is what triumphs are for. They erase the idea that resistance ever made sense. At the end of the procession, many expect execution. That is how older triumphs ended. A defeated enemy paraded, then quietly strangled or beheaded away from the crowd. Rome learned, over time, that death was inefficient. Dead enemies become martyrs. Living ones become warnings. Zenobia is not killed. She is removed. No announcement, no ceremony. One moment she is visible, the next she is gone. The crowd barely notices. The point has already been made. Rome does not explain what happens next. Uncertainty does the rest of the work. Zenobia disappears into Roman custody, but not into darkness. She is placed in a villa near Tibermodern in Tivoli. Comfortable, guarded, watched. Roman sources disagree on the details, but they agree on one thing. She lived. That survival has often been misread as mercy. It was not. Zenobia was allowed to live because her rebellion was over. Because her image had already been neutralized. Because Rome had stripped her of every political function she once served. She was no longer a queen. She was no longer a threat. She was no longer a symbol of resistance. She was a demonstration that even the most powerful woman in the East could be reduced to a managed life. Inside Rome's borders, this was not kindness. It was containment. Rome repeated this pattern again and again. Cleopatra was denied a triumph, only because she died too soon. Had she lived, she would have walked in chains, just like Zenobia. Her children were paraded, instead another variation of the same lesson. Boudica's daughters were assaulted publicly because Rome wanted Britain to understand that bloodlines meant nothing. Royalty could be violated. Lineage could be erased. Cartimandua survived by cooperating and was despised for it. Survival bought safety, not respect. Rome did not care whether women resisted or submitted. It cared whether they could be used. If a woman's body could terrorize a population, it was weaponized. If her survival could demonstrate Rome's control, it was allowed. If neither applied, she vanished. This was imperial logic, applied without emotion. The mistake modern history often makes is calling this cruelty exceptional. It wasn't. It was policy. Roman law classified conquered peoples as hosts' enemies. Then till Rome decided otherwise, that meant their bodies existed outside the moral boundaries. That protected citizens. Violence was not excess. It was administration. Women, especially royal women, existed at a dangerous intersection. They carried bloodlines. They carried legitimacy. They carried memory. That made them valuable. And value, under empire, does not mean protection. It means exploitation. Zenobia's survival did not restore her agency. It removed it permanently. She married a Roman senator. She raised children inside the empire that destroyed her own. Her story ended quietly because Rome preferred it that way. Loud endings inspire questions. Quiet ones teach acceptance. By the time Rome finished with Zenobia, it had refined a template. Break resistance publicly. Preserve the body selectively. Rewrite the meaning afterward. And this template did not stay in Rome. It traveled through law, through ceremony, through empire. And centuries later, another young woman would discover that being spared does not mean being saved. She would not wear gold chains. She would wear rope. The hardest part was not the chains. It was what came after them. Once the crowd dispersed, once the triumph ended, Zenobia entered a phase far more dangerous than captivity: irrelevance. Rome did not torture her. It did not interrogate her endlessly. It simply absorbed her. And absorption is how empires erase people without blood. In the villa near Tiber, Zenobia's days became structured, quiet, endlessly repetitive. She woke when she was told. She ate what was prepared. She walked only where permission allowed. Roman historians describe this as comfort: marble floors, shaded gardens, servants, tutors for her children. They wanted readers to understand that Rome was generous. But generosity without choice is just another form of control. Zenobia had ruled cities. She had negotiated with emperors. She had commanded armies across deserts and trade routes. Now, her greatest freedom was deciding which corner of the garden to stand in. This was not mercy. This was domestication. Rome understood something crucial about memory. Killing a ruler freezes them in time. Letting them live allows the world to forget them slowly. Zenobia was no longer queen of Palmyra. She became a noble woman of the East. then simply a Roman matron. Each title shaved away a layer of her former self. Visitors came less often. Stories stopped circulating. Her name faded from conversation, and Rome did nothing to stop this. It didn't have to. Her marriage sealed it. A Roman senator. Respectable. Loyal. Politically safe. This union was not romantic. It was administrative. It converted a defeated enemy into a compliant asset. Her children would be Roman citizens. Her bloodline would dissolve into the empire that crushed it. This is how Rome won after wars ended, not by burning cities, but by rewriting futures. Zenobia's children would not inherit Palmyra. They would inherit Rome. And Rome would make sure they never asked what was lost. What survives of Zenobia's inner life is almost nothing. That absence is not accidental. Roman sources cared about her use, not her thoughts. Greek writers lost interest once she stopped threatening power. Eastern records were destroyed or absorbed, so we are left with silence. And silence is often the final victory of authority. Because when someone stops being dangerous, history stops listening. But absence does not mean peace. Survivors of absolute power often carry a quieter damage, the kind that doesn't scream. The kind that settles. Imagine remembering yourself as someone the world once feared, and realizing the world no longer remembers you at all. Imagine knowing your restraint saved lives, but erased your name. Imagine living long enough to watch your defeat become trivia. Zenobia did, and in that survival, she became something Rome preferred far more than a corpse. A lesson without a voice. Empires rarely destroy people outright. They break context. They remove witnesses. They let time finish the job. Zenobia's rebellion could not be allowed to inspire others, so Rome turned her into proof that resistance ends, not in glory, but in quiet absorption. No songs, no monuments, no legacy that could ignite another spark. Just a woman living comfortably, watched carefully, remembered vaguely. But history has a habit of misbehaving, because fragments survive. A line in a chronicle, a contradiction between sources, a question no one bothered to answer. And when we followed those fragments, we begin to see what Rome wanted hidden. That Zenobia was not spared out of kindness. She was preserved as a warning that survival can be another form of defeat, and that the most complete victories are the ones that leave no visible scars. Yet even Rome could not fully control the ending, because decades later, when Palmyra fell into ruin, travelers still asked about the queen. When scholars revisited the texts, they noticed how carefully her agency was minimized. Why mention her intelligence at all unless it frightened them? Why emphasize her dignity unless it unsettled them? Why let her live unless killing her risked something worse? Zenobia's story does not end with her death. It ends with a question. What does power fear more? A woman who dies defiant, or a woman who survives and refuses to disappear entirely? Rome never needed everyone to die. It only needed everyone to understand. By the time Zenobia faded into controlled obscurity, the machinery was already in motion elsewhere. The pattern repeated itself across provinces, across decades, across generations. Trust Rome. Obey Rome. Submit and you may live. Resist and Rome will decide how you are remembered, if at all. Far from marble villas and guarded dignity, the empire's other lesson waited beneath stone. While triumphs climbed the Capitoline Hill, another path descended, hidden from cheering crowds, hidden from celebration, hidden from history unless you knew where to look. The Mamertine prison, the Tolenum, Rome's final punctuation mark. It was not built to hold people, it was built to end them. A vertical hole in the ground. Prisoners lowered or dropped into darkness. No windows, no air, no light, moisture dripping from stone. Human waste soaked into the floor. Silence, broken only by breathing until breathing stopped. Execution here was not spectacle. It was erasure. Rome understood something terrifyingly modern. Public death creates martyrs. Private death creates footnotes. This is where kings went when they were no longer useful. Vercingetorix learned this. After uniting Gaul and nearly breaking Caesar's campaign, he was not killed. He was kept alive for 6 years. 6 years of waiting. 6 years knowing his life was paused, not spared. Then came Caesar's triumph. Vercingetorix was paraded in chains through Rome. A defeated symbol, a proof of dominance. And when the procession ended, guards led him away. No crowd followed. No record lingered. No body returned. The city celebrated above while he disappeared below. Jugurtha of Numidia followed. After Marius' triumph, he was lowered into the Tolleanum. Ancient writers say he screamed, laughed, begged, lost his mind. He survived 6 days in darkness before starving. Rome did not rush. Time itself was the punishment. Simon Bar Giora, leader of the Jewish revolt, met the same end. His execution was timed precisely. The triumph paused at Jupiter's temple. Only when confirmation arrived that Simon was dead did the celebration continue. Death was not tragedy. It was choreography, and this is what separates Rome from mere brutality. Rome systematized humiliation. Some rulers lived, like Zenobia, preserved as walking warnings. Others Baniset consumed quietly beneath stone. Both outcomes served the same purpose: fear, carefully managed. This is why Boudica mat. She disrupted the script. Rome expected her to break, to bunnies, to become another erased woman whose pain taught obedience. Instead, humiliation detonated. She transformed violation into fury, silence into rebellion, and for a moment, Rome lost control of the narrative. Citius Bernid authority collapsed. Legions panicked. This was not supposed to happen. Rome had miscalculated, and when Rome miscalculates, it does not reflect, it corrects. Steel, discipline, annihilation. Boudica disappears from history not because she was unimportant, but because her survival would have been dangerous. No villa, no quiet absorption, no controlled memory. Only absence, and sometimes absence is deliberate. By the end, the lesson was complete. Queens who could be used were spared. Queens who could not were erased. Daughters were collateral. Law was conditional. Dignity was negotiable. Rome called this order. Rome called this civilization. Rome called this peace. What remains now are fragments. Tacitus restrained horror. Plutarch's discomfort. Josephus, careful words, and stone walls that do not explain themselves. Tourists descend into the Mamertine today. They take photos. They whisper. They leave. Few stay long. The prison does not speak. It does not need to, because Rome's greatest success was not conquest. It was teaching the world that power decides whose suffering is remembered and whose disappears into silence. The queens who lived remembered. The queens who died warned, and the empire endured. Not because it was just, but because it understood how fear travels farther than armies ever could.